Hey, it's Saul with news, updates, and analyses.
Hey, it's all with news updates and analyses, and today's thing is going to be on WoW's cash shop, or more specifically, all the cosmetic stuff that you can purchase in the World of Warcraft with real cash money. Over the years, WoW has built up a catalog of mounts, pets, and funny hats. The community has mixed feelings on these items, which sum up to you either don't like them, or you like/don't care about them. So I'm going to bring up the viewpoints, some counter arguments, and top it off with a crazy idea from yours truly. Let's do it. First, let's make it clear that this piece is only covering cosmetic purchases. Maybe at some point I'll cover paid services like transfers and boosts and the token, but I'm not going to do it all at once, because trust me, I tried writing it and it wound up being way too long and complicated, and yeah. The current cash shop includes the following: 12 pets, 10 mounts, 3 hats, and the Warlords of Draenor bundle of extra stuff. By the way, the in-game shop doesn't have as much stuff as the shop on the website. The bundle is missing, as well as the Moonkin hatchling, which I'm sure is pretty obvious racism. Anyway, that's an extremely small number of purchasables relative to what's obtainable in-game, with hundreds of mounts and pets, and probably over 1,000 or so different helmets. The crowd that's against these kinds of cash shop items include, but aren't limited to, the following arguments. Microtransactions shouldn't be on top of a subscription service. High quality content shouldn't be behind a premium. On top of the already existing paid character services, this is really greedy. It's only a matter of time until WoW becomes pay to win, and really there's so much more. Microtransactions or additional content, DLC, or however you want to call it, it's been debated for years, long before WoW, and will continue to be ragged on for years to come. From the other side come these arguments, which aren't exactly supportive, but they're more like counterpoints, including, as long as there's no pay to win features, it's not a big deal. It's Blizzard's game and they can do what they want. If you're against the idea, well, just don't buy the stuff. This is the way of the industry now, just deal with it. And more than any other argument, this point really does describe the reality of game development these days. Studios big and small use additional content as their primary business model, to prolong the life of their games, supplement growth for their studio, or just to keep the lights on. In the case of WoW, premium content has been shown to be extremely lucrative. Its first big dive was the Celestial Steed, this goofy looking flying sparkle horse. At $25, many players felt the price point was way outside the realm of sanity. But newsfolk in the gaming world noticed how hot the sales were looking during the first few hours of its availability, and projected that Blizzard made millions off of this mount. Considering the development that goes into this mount and its return, you'd think that Blizzard would pull this sort of stunt all the time. It's speculative, but it's likely that even now, Blizzard has resisted the temptation to overdevelop premium content for the sake of revenue. After all, going too far in that direction makes a pretty bad impression on gamers who vilify the notion of premium content, and these gamers are really loud. It's another obvious fact to point out when debunking the myth of Activision's direct influence on Blizzard's business model. We've also got to consider the fact that WoW is a pretty old game, and there's a big difference between what WoW's development of this premium content is, and on the other side, on-disc DLC. On-disc DLC is where skins or other playable content is already created for the launch of the game and exists on the game data, or the disc, but it's still locked behind a cash purchase. For WoW to not sell paid content until 6 years after its launch is a pretty fair acknowledgement. It's also interesting to take a look at the paradigm Blizzard has tried and failed to fulfill: shorter gaps between expansions. The widely believed theory from fans and critics is that when Blizzard launches an expansion box, a whole lot of money is to be made. Release expansions faster, and that much more money is to be made. But I don't believe in that theory at all. I also don't know what Blizzard's actual point a gun to their head reasoning is, but I feel strongly that the goal is not necessarily to generate more money. There are much more lucrative opportunities to generate revenue than the old adage of doing more with less. It's a big and risky investment to bank on expansion sales every year or two when there are more predictable and less risky approaches to growth. Now, I have an idea. It's a bad one, because if it was good, Blizzard would probably have done it already. But what if Blizzard really doubled down on the cash shop to generate this extra revenue? We're going to scratch the surface regarding WoW as a business, so if this doesn't interest you, hit a like and a sub because I warned you, stay breezy, etc. For the rest of us, let's see if we can help Blizzard fatten its pockets, but more importantly, make it pay off for the players. I'm going to keep it basic so it's easy to understand, and this is probably the limit of my intelligence anyway. To help, I'm going to rely on this website, worldofwarcrafts.com. This is a pretty neat site that can pull up all sorts of useful data. I've no idea if it's still actively updated, but from the looks of it, it's still automatically pulling up-to-date data from WoW's API, so that works for me. We're going to look at the stats regarding player-owned mounts to see if there's data that supports my idea. Again, for the sake of time, we're just going to stick to the mount data. As of this writing, here's what we've got. Since this uses armory data, we can at least assume that these numbers reflect active users within a certain number of months with at least one level 100 character. Roughly, we're looking at a 10 to 20% attach rate, and unfortunately there's no way for us to know how many players purchased one or more of each mount, but that's not super important anyway. So let's make some broad assumptions instead. We use American greenbacks for our values. Let's lowball it and say that only 10% of the active player base is ever willing to buy these mounts, down from the 13-14% average from the earlier table. Let's lowball even more and say we have 3 million active players to work with. Now let's lowball even further and say every mount was purchased on sale for 15 bucks instead of the usual 25 or 30 bucks. Based on that scale, we're going to project that for every mount released, it's going to be purchased by 300,000 players and generate a maximum of $4.5 million in its total lifetime. So I lowballed yet again. Considering all of that, that's not bad at all. A mount is arguably not difficult to make. All it takes is an idea. And concept art, approvals, sign-off, modeling, rigging, animating, sign-off, testing, compatibility, approvals, regression testing, sign-off, marketing, promoting, compliance, submission, sign-off, deployment, and a blog post. And then follow-up, and maybe a sign-off. Give or take a model versus a reskin, a new mount is pretty involved, but compared to other segments of game development, this is not so bad. Here's what I'd like to see or would have liked to have seen. A separate entity independent of the main art and animation team dedicated solely to generating revenue through the sales of cosmetic items. Its existence is dependent on the numbers it can produce. Ultimately, it's a production and sales department. Let's pretend that its goals are to raise revenue by anywhere between $10 and $20 million a year, and it'll do this by launching 2 mounts every quarter, or 8 mounts a year. Each mount produced doesn't mean instant revenue because it has to sell, but based on our model, we can say that each one increases our projected revenue over the course of several years. Mounts don't exactly go bad or expire, so aside from its dependence on subscriber numbers, the department's growth can really go in one direction. There's also diminishing returns to consider, but the non-expiration of mounts sort of cancels this out. Its eventual success will mean the expansion on what the team can produce, which means a larger team. Pets and transmog skins can start appearing in the shop as well. A team of 10 comprising of concept and 3D artists, animators, effects specialists, and a manager dedicated to a small number of quality content pieces can probably produce a lot of profit, even if all 10 of them earned over $100,000 a year after benefits. Of course, what about the players? I mean, yay, Blizzard is printing money, but you can bet that the outcry from players would be massive, regardless of how Blizzard paints this idea. Critics would argue that instead of a separate art team, just make the current team bigger and produce more non-premium content. That's an easy and valid argument to make. But from a business standpoint, budgeting for a bigger team without a known return is pretty tricky. On the other hand, budgeting, approving, or even scrapping this separate team using key performance indicators is easier for Blizzard decision makers to understand. Meanwhile, resources aren't taken away from the existing team. You sort of have your cake and eat it too. Customization and the opportunity to make your character feel unique is objectively a good thing. In a space where players feel like their classes are being dumbed down or homogenized or whatever hyperbolic catchphrase they feel like using, having more cosmetic options does help a bit. It helps even when the conversation can devolve into an argument between Blizzard's greed and special snowflakes. Maybe Blizzard can introduce cosmetic tokens, similar to the WoW token. I'm not going to get into that subject though because we'd move into territory outside of the scope of this analysis, but that'd be a start. Probably the biggest benefit for a department like this would be to negate the previous theory that I mentioned about pumping out expansions faster. A revenue stream that's independent of expansion cycles means that Blizzard can take an even closer look at future expansions' product life cycles. It's been said that Legion will have a better paced and perhaps longer patch cycle than Warlords of Draenor, but premium content provides an opportunity to stretch out an expansion for even longer. It can help fund more patch content or help other areas of the WoW team expand to engineer new features and systems. The door opens for having meatier, playable content with fewer sacrifices in story, scope, and scale. I know that ultimately this means that some players will end up spending more money, but the point is that when it comes to this sort of optional content, namely skins and pets and mounts, people just like to collect stuff. The passionate conversations about transmog and the website I showed you kind of underlines that point. Whether it's an autograph book, a plushie, fake Doomhammer, or in-game cosmetic thing, there's a significant number of people who will throw down to collect stuff stuff. In my opinion, fans of in-game collectibles are a target market that Blizzard does not take full advantage of, and maybe that's a good thing, but it might be a missed opportunity too. That's it for today. It's okay to agree or disagree with this piece, but hopefully my points were clear and at least got you thinking about what it takes for some of your favorite video games to survive in the long term. If you thought this piece was at least interesting to you, hit a like to support and a sub for more weekly stuff. I'll see you guys next time when I talk about news that other channels are probably already beating to death. I'm Soul. Stay breezy, guys.